Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all how to make your own cage style pendant for roughly tumbled stones, like irregularly shaped stuff or marbles or literally whatever you want to put in there. I really like getting some like big pieces of lava stone and using them as like a diffuser if you're into that. Just whatever you want to put in it. This is how we make it. So I've demonstrated in a live stream making this with mandrel pliers, but I highly recommend making it instead with a thingamajig like how we have here. It's just a little piece of basically pegboard that comes with pre-sized pegs in different sizes and little rubber like backs to keep them from sliding out. And the layout that we're going to be using today is with the medium, like, because there's like, okay, let's call these ones extra large. These ones will be large, medium, and then small. So large, medium, and small sizes that come with it. And on my mandrel pliers, it would be the biggest loop, which I think is like 10 millimeters, the 6 millimeter loop, and then the 2 or 3 millimeter loop. And you could also do this with stick mandrels as well. And really you can use whatever size, like it's the structural concept that I'm trying to get across here. Because of its very loose and open and airy shape, I'm using a 16 gauge. This is American wire gauge, but I'm using 16 gauge wire in about 12 inches of length. Yeah. And I am going to snip off 3 of these 12-inch lengths. I wouldn't recommend using anything for at least this size, which is about maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Yeah, 2 inches in height. If you were making a smaller pendant, I think you could get away with using an 18 gauge, but you know how you wear jewelry better than anybody. If you're particularly rough on it, I would recommend going with a heavier gauge wire. So a 14 or even a 12 gauge would just be amazing for this, especially if you decide to do some different hammering and stuff, because we can show you here the difference between this one still has a little bit of hammering, but this one was really hammered like smash. But also this is a copper enameled wire and this is aluminum, so I always get a really nice spread on the aluminum, but I feel like it makes a super durable, a slightly more delicate end result. So we are going to begin by making our loop with a little bit of a point. So to do that, I'm going to come to the center of our 16 gauge wire. I'm going to use my flat nose pliers. There is a list of all the tools and materials down in the video description, so if you are shopping for tools that are similar to mine, that would be the place to go. We also, anything that's not listed there may be in our curated toolkit on our website, which is a great resource for if you're new to crafting and you want to get a general idea of what I as a professional jewelry designer use daily. Okay, so we're holding onto this with our flat nose pliers, and we're going to give it a really nice, just sharp bend. So just like that. And from here, I'm going to position like this. I try to not take the other pegs out because then I'll lose them. That's the only way I haven't lost them so far. So if you have a thingamajig, we'd come in here, and you don't have to have it lined up perfect. Let's see if I can zoom in for you guys just a bit. Oh, yeah, that should work. So the goal is to get that point to end up being kind of centered, but until we make space, we're just going to come in here and bend that around, and now we can turn it and bypass our medium peg. And it's from here we can line up and make sure that it's centered up. And then I'm going to take this wire and we're just bending and guiding it around the pegs, trying to stay nice and tight and snug. And I'm not going to make like a loop on this end, but I do want to just shape it around. So we're going to do that same thing on the other side. So just shaping, and I'm pressing to try to make sure that you can even get in there with your flat nose pliers and just press where the wires cross to make sure that the loop is being very two-dimensional and not like being pokey uppy outy. And as we remove this, now that we've shaped it around, we're just going to lift it off. But you can see it does have a little bit of depth to it, but we just want to make sure that it's not like really stacked and exaggerated. So we're going to leave this one like this for now, and we're going to do that same exact thing on the other side. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit to give you guys an idea of what I'm doing, like with my hand positioning, if that might be helpful. So we're holding into the center of our another 12-inch length of wire, giving it a nice sharp bend. If you're very, very particular, I'd have gone ahead and done this step on both of my wires first. And then I'm going to position it, bend it around a bit, and shift it some so that we can get a nice, hopefully centered up. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then just bending these wires around. Really cinching and pressing, and then bending that one. And then we're going to do this on the other side as well. And I don't think I'll be able to find it. I'm not very good about sifting through and relying on future Vaughn to actually add stuff to down to like the cards or the video description. But there is a live stream where I did this with the mandrel pliers, but the consistency, and just if you want to sit down and you're making a bunch of stuff for like a craft show or for inventory for if you have a website or something, the thingamajig is such a nice investment. Okay, and so here you can see on this one it's a little bit more three-dimensional than I would like, and so we can just come through and smush everything down kind of nice. And then I'm going to set this off to the side. To keep it clean, I actually have like a little drawer that I keep it in, but I'm just going to set it here for now, and this is how messes are made. But that'll be fine. So now from here, I'm going to zoom back in. I'm going to measure and cut like a centimeter, or we could just put our wire snips in line with the tip of the loop. Let's do that, because we can always trim off more material. But we'll just bring it in and snip. I always save my little loose ends, because if they don't come in handy as like second use or scrap wire, we are saving up all of our scrap copper for melting down into some, I don't know, ingots or something. We may be able to use it for electroforming, or we may be able to maybe use it for casting. I don't know. I just thought it'd be kind of cool, instead of selling it for scrap money this time, if we actually made something out of it. So I am snipping them so that they're all within a millimeter or so the same length of each other. And then I'm going to come in, grabbing as close to the tip of the wire and as close to the tip of the pliers as I can, making a little vroom vroom, like turnkey motion with my hand. And from here, we can just curl that in. And you can close that loop or you can leave it kind of open. It's entirely up to your own preference, artistically. I'm going to try to have mine closed just because I'm always wearing like something that's like knit or has like a lace trim or something. And so they're very prone to getting tangled and stuff. Oh, and I'm having a hard time with that too. That's okay. We can do it. This 16 gauge can be a little bit, you have to be strong-handed with it. But you'll get there. There we go. It's not perfectly closed, but I like it better. Now we do have the option here for hammering. which if we decide to do that, we will get some spreading on our wire, and we may even have, I'm using Parawire brand wire here, which is just the best whenever it comes to enameled wire. This is not sponsored. I just use them in all of my work because I trust them and I get great results and my clients are happy and I'm happy. But if you hammer the heck out of this, you can get some chipping, especially if you don't have a whole lot of experience with hammering and you like clip it with the edge of your hammer or something. So if this is your first time wire wrapping and you're doing this project, I'd recommend bypassing the hammering, because it also makes doing the wire wrapping of the pieces together later a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. So it's entirely stylistic and up to you on whether or not you hammer. So I'm going to come in here and do that same spiral on the other side. And if you guys would like a slightly more advanced version of this tutorial where we do multiple core wires and do like a bunch of weaving and hammering and interesting things, let me know down in the comments because I love hearing from you guys. And I love evolving designs with y'all too through our tutorials. Okay, so there we go. Just a nice little, I don't know how many times we've made necklaces that's basically just this, lightly hammered with like joined to some chain in a really cute little briolet wrap just hanging down, or briolet, or however. We took a pretty bead and we made it dangle. So, but that was something that I really liked doing whenever we were always making jewelry for our booth. And I may have some for our upcoming holiday sale, we'll see. Okay. So now from here, we'll want to consider what it is that we're setting in our cage, because that's going to determine how we shape this moving forward. If we have a stone like this one here, which is like a 25mm orb, I would actually have made 4 of these and have one come in and hold from the bottom, and then may have the other set, the other 2 that have been woven together, come in from the other side, almost like this. This end is a little bit weird. I was experimenting, and just weave all of that together, and that way it's still held, but you can really see that orb in there. Or if you want to set a smaller stone, you can just kind of drop that in there and we'll do that same exact design. So I think we may actually do 2 separate tutorials, one that's simple and houses just a small marble, and then one that will be more ornate with the 2 layers and joining that together, because I think as a tabletop gamer, this would be so cool for holding a D20. Like if I ever have a D20 that like is beautiful but doesn't roll well, this would be a perfect use for that. Or if you have a longer stone, you'll want to determine, you know, how much space you're going to need to accommodate here on the other end. What on earth is that god awful noise? Huh, and then it stopped. Oh, it's our neighbor's brakes. I hope everything's okay. Okay, so now we are going to come through, and I'm just tweaking these little spirals to make sure that everything's more or less lined up. And you could use a golf ball, you could use a little sphere like this one, you could I have a particular fondness, our old friend Bex, that we haven't heard of from ages, but we think of frequently, sent us this Dapping Block Set, and I really like using one of the pawns from the Dapping Block. I don't know if that's what they're actually called, but that's what they remind me of. As well as, and I will have this linked down in the video description. It's just occurred to me I'm talking away from the camera. We will have this linked down in the video description. So there they are. So if you would like to get your paws on a dapping set, the one that we recommend will be down below, but we can just set it in this is the 1.5 inch cavity, and I'm just pressing with our 1 inch dapping block pawn or peg, or like, what's the official term for that? I don't know. And mortar and pestle is what it makes me think of, so this might be the pestle. And that just shapes it around nice and literally round. And then we're going to set the other one in, the other side. And I start from the center, and I am just pressing and then shifting the pressure, and I'm not even really hammering. I just want to get the basic shape. And again, if you don't have this, we could just take, like, put it in your hand, take something round, and like really press into it and like smush it around with your fingers and stuff. Like, that does a fantastic job. Actually, that makes a much nicer, tighter shaping. So if there's a crafter, there's a way. So sometimes you have to get a little bit extra creative with the crafting means, but it's the result that speaks for itself. So, like, just the other day in a live stream, we were talking to folks, and they were like, what do I do if I don't have a steel block for hammering on? And I was like, for years we used a carpenter's hammer in the bottom of one of my cooking skillets to just hammer our stuff. It was loud but effective. So now we can come in, and just where the points of our two tips touch and where the spirals touch, we can start weaving together. Now that leaves a little bit. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the edge of my flat nose pliers, and I'm going to come in about 3 millimeters from the tip, and I am going to bend just slightly. And then I'm going to do that on the other side as well. Again, trying to get about 3 millimeters and bend. So that brings to where the tips will kind of sit a little bit more flush together. It gives us a really cute little, like, almost like the bottom of an acorn coming down. And we can use, here we have some 21 gauge half round wire. You could use, gosh, 30 gauge, 28, 26, or 24 would all work for this round wire for bringing it together. I'm going to try today using 18 gauge half round, like, and just to show y'all. Here I am using, on both of these, I'm using 28 gauge, no, 26 gauge, I'm sorry, to do the weaving. And it gives a nice look, but I think it's going to be a little bit more challenging to get a really good result, because we have to make sure that the wire stays like flat without getting twists and stuff in it. But I think you guys will be very pleased with your own results with using the half round wire. So we're going to start by joining these two tips together. So to do that, I'm going to cut 6 inches of our 18 gauge half round, and all the metal that I'm using today is the titanium toned wire from parawire.com. And I am going to do, you can tell the flat side because of the way that it flashes, and then the round side because of, that's how that looks. And so we'll come in and we are going to start wrapping it around just one of the sides. I want to try to get like 3 wraps done. So there's one. Don't hesitate to use your pliers to get a little bit more snug of a fit. So sometimes I just like to use them to stabilize one of the sides. There we go. And then once it gets short enough, I can come in. This right here is always the easiest part because you're just worrying about the one side. And just getting the old smush, smush, smush together like that. I try to make sure that the wire is ending on the side that's going to be facing like internally. That way there's just no way that it could snag onto your clothing or something. And then I have it a little offset to the side from the point just by a few millimeters, because that's going to give us an area where we can then wrap. And I'm just stringing on our second side. And then from here, we can bend around, and it's almost like we're sewing them together. If you've ever done any leather working where you're like lacing with a half round lace, this is very, very similar. But also in its way trickier because wire wrapping. It's okay though, like I love it. It's challenging, but it's wonderful to be challenged and rise to the occasion. So we've done that first wrap, and I'm gonna set them a little so that the wires are sitting side by side like this, and then I can come in with our bent nose pliers and give it a bit of a smush. There we go. And then coming around, we're gonna do another stitch there on the front, like right on the tip. And it may be very handy, again, to get your pliers in there. I don't know if I'd recommend this for a very first wire wrapping project, unless you're an immensely patient person who is not easily discouraged, because it can be frustrating and discouraging to be constantly wrestling with your wire. But you can do this. Sometimes you need to set the project down and walk away from it, give yourself a break, but you can do it. So now we're going to do one more just here on the tip. And I'm going to get that first bend going before I get everything into its final position. Because my tendency here is to wrap just a little too tightly. But we'll get it sorted. And then I'm just going to feed through to the other side. And the nice thing about using this 18 gauge half round, instead of threading through both, I just want to thread through run. But the nice thing about using this 18 gauge half round is you don't have to do a whole lot of rotations, like a whole lot of wraps, because it's sturdy. It's very sturdy. It'll hold itself in its place. It doesn't take a whole lot to get it stabilized. And so now we're going to do 3 wraps just on the other side here. And if you were doing this with, let's say 26 gauge round would be what I would recommend actually for this project. I would do 5 to 10 wraps around, 5 to 10 wraps around both, and then 5 to 10 wraps around the other side, possibly with a little bit of like figure 8 weaving going on. But again, we'll cover that in another tutorial, because with just very slight modifications like that on a design, you can come up with something very, very different, very fun. And then you can decide for yourself if you like the way that that side looks, or if you like the way that that side looks, and then you can determine which side from there is going to be the front. We can test fit our little bobble. This is also, I'm just going to say, if you have any like puffed hearts, let me rummage for a moment. I think I have a Lamport glass one. Yes. If you have a puffed heart, this is like the best setting for that. I'm just going to throw that out there. Or at least for the butt of it, it is. So now, and if you have a thicker stone, you may want to change the shape of what you've got going on, but I sometimes like to do that after I have done all of the wrapping that we're fixing to do. So now from here, again, we are going to come in. I'm going to try to be consistent about which side has the stabilizing wraps on it. So I'm going to come in over here and do that first bend. It is such a beautiful autumn day. Wherever you are in time and space watching this, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and thank you so much for joining me here. I do hope that it will be helpful to you. And we are just bending around. And then I'm using our bent nose pliers to really get in there. Give that some solid smushes. Again, trying to make sure that the wire ends in a position where it won't get snagged on clothing or on sensitive skin. Okay, and now I'm actually gonna open that back up just a little bit. Let's roll this around, there it goes, to about right there, because we want our edge, let me just working that back, there we go. I want to come up and through the spiral on the opposing side. If your fingers are slipping, just grab your pliers, they'll get you where you're going. I'm actually going to open that up a little bit, just enough that we can fit the wire through. So there's one. Oops, a little too far down on this side. And again, it can be a little stiff and a little bit of a struggle, but sometimes that's what it takes in your wire wrapping. So I'm feeding it through, pulling the backside. Like, not all wire wrapping is as easy as I would like it to be. Sometimes it's like this and it's a little bit of a struggle and I feel clumsy, but the only way we get better is by doing. So there's one. I'm going to do at least 2 wraps here on the shoulder. So I'm going to feed that wire through where we want it to go, grabbing with my pliers, and to cinch I hold on with my fingers and I'm holding on to the very tip of the wire and I am just wiggling and pulling. And that's something that I don't recommend necessarily for like thinner wires, but this 18 gauge half round, it can take it. It's beefy. And then just threading through around the other way. And whenever we smush, when we start getting our final smushes in, I don't want the core wires stacked on top of each other. So I just be mindful of that whenever I'm shaping and smushing. And again, oh, that came out so wonky and weird. Oh no. So let's actually, I think I'm going to transition here to using 26 gauge just to demonstrate the differences. So I'm going to give that a snip, snip. It's kind of like if we have any fiber artists in here, whenever you're crocheting and you realize that you messed up on something and you have to rip out all those stitches. Fortunately with wire wrapping you don't have to rip out all the stitches, but I am just tugging on this to try to get the wire loosened. There we go. Okay, let me go grab the 26 gauge and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have pulled off 20 inches of the 26 gauge. And I'm almost considering rewrapping the front too. I don't know, we'll see. We'll figure it out. So, I have about 1.5 inches of wire coming off as a tail to give me something to hold on to, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 coils of the 26 gauge around the 16 gauge. And I'm going to snip that bit of a tail off. Boop. The reason I've done 10 coils here is to give it a substantial enough of a grip that now whenever we bring the other side up, we can tug on it without ripping out our coils that we just did. So I'm going to push that around with my thumbnail just enough that we can now come in and wrap. And there's once and twice. Oh, I didn't even do it on the right side. bah humbug. And, oops. I'm just kind of getting in there, getting past the tip of that spiral. So there's 3. 4. And 5. And now from here, again, for the sake of consistency, I don't know, we can kind of smush everything together. We could choose to finish our wrap wires on this side or on this side. It really is entirely up to you stylistically. I think I'm going to do them over on this side, so in which case I want to come around so that I'm exiting right there. Like if you can see, right, I'm exiting between the tip of the spiral and that inner curve as opposed to in between them. And I'm going to just do, there's 1, and 2, and 3, giving it a smush, 4, and, sorry, I was starting to wander out of frame. I even have like these squares and things on my work surface to try to help me stay in frame. I am not good at staying in frame. Thank you guys for your patience though, and your understanding. Anybody who's shot a tutorial, I think is a whole lot more empathetic to other folks whenever it comes to trying to the struggle of staying in frame. Okay, so then we are going to just smush that down with our bent nose pliers. Give it a smush with our fingernails or our pliers. And so that is how that looks. And honestly, I'm kind of digging it more than this like wonky. So let's undo our work. Yay, ripping stitches. Which part of me is like, I should just start over the tutorial, but I'm going to leave that in because it might be helpful to somebody who is trying to work with half round, and if they're having some struggles, maybe, I don't know, maybe they have some advice for me. Maybe they learned something, I don't know. But I've said it before and it's worth saying again, this is not a 5 minutes crafts channel. We're trying to actually teach here. And I learn more by how I mess up, or learn more from how I mess up, than by just seeing somebody do it perfectly. So now that we've removed that, I am going to take, this is still about 16 inches of the 26 gauge. I'm going to fold it in half and feed one end through both. And I'm going to bring this around and go, and it's more of the same, just kind of stitch sewing. There's 1, there's 2, and I'm going to do 3 on this side and then just 2 on the other. That way it gives us a total of 5 lashes around both. And now I am going to, we could start figure 8ing this, which what I mean by that is we're going to wrap once around one wire before we bring it around the top and then up through the bottom of the other side, making sure that we're not getting any little kinks in our wire. And then we'll wrap it around once and then feed it through so that that's a full rotation before we feed it up from below through the other side. If you've ever watched any of my other tutorials, this is the weave that I often use for making bails. There's that one. Then bringing it up and through. I haven't been keeping count, but we'll deal with that in a minute. And then there's once and twice. And then feeding it through once. That's a full rotation, yep. And then bringing it. And this is a perfect opportunity. If you wanted to start including some beads through on here, you could totally like thread a little bead on. Some like little silver beads would look so pretty. And you could continue this up all the way if you have something very precious in here and you don't want to risk at all ever that it could possibly get snagged and come out. You can join these two. Well, I'm not even in frame. I'm so sorry, you guys. I can feel the thumbs down. Oh no, it's still engagement. Sorry. You could still join these two loops together. And we could actually, y'all, I don't know, we could whip stitch this up. Like, you don't have to stop here. You could just continue weaving all the way up until you join these two together. But that's going to be quite a bit, and I don't think I have enough wire to do that with this little bit that we have. So I'm going to do one more on this side. So yeah, and that evens it out to where we will have 3 repetitions on each side. And then this is the side that has my grounding wire on it, so I'm just going to feed it through. And then there's once, sewing twice, sewing thrice. Because I'd like to get about 5 wraps, 5 to 10 perhaps. And one to grow on. But yeah, so you can kind of see, maybe zooming in more is a good idea. Ooh, that's super zoom. Oh god, my nails. Oh well. So that's how that's looking. So that would be 5. We could do 10. There's 6. Uh-oh. We got a kink in our wire, almost. So whenever the wire kinks up, I just be gentle with it and encourage it out of that shape. So again, from here we could continue coiling all the way up and join these 2 pieces. Like, you have so much options, so many options here that you can really choose whatever it is that you'd like to do to make this your own. So I'm going to give it a snip though, and I've left enough hanging over that I can smush it down so that it is ended internally. So something would have to be getting in here and hooking up underneath it to snag. So there's that side. Yeah, I like this a lot better than the half round, you guys. Let me know what you think. Either if you're here in the premiere, hey everybody in the premiere, or down in the comments. Because I think the half round, if I had been better at it, would have looked really, really good, but it was just giving me a fight, man. Maybe I should have tried the 21 gauge half round. So I did the other 2 coils, so now we have 5 on the tip, but I just think it helps having a smaller wire because it lets us fit what we need to into these tighter spaces. And let's make everything nice and compressed. And so now from here, we're going to do that same, where we do 1 loop around 1. Just cinching it with my fingernail before we come around, and from below on the other side. Oh no, I'm snagged. That's okay. The thing with this is not the type of wrap that is good to rush through. So there's 1 around 1, and then coming through, and you can see how it exits and then comes around as opposed to here we've just been wrapping around both. This one has that figure 8 because it's doing that figure 8. It's actually going around once and then coming through and going around once and coming through. I just find that gives it a little bit more stability, but you do you. So there's one, and then bring it around town. There we go. And then giving it a little bit of a smush. So that's one full repetition on both sides. Then one and around. But before we really bend it up and around, I like to get that wire through the other side so that we can start pulling it down and in. 1, 2, and then bring it up and around. Just like that. And then through like that. Pulling it down. So it's 2 full rotations. Let's do 1 more full rotation on both sides. Yeah, I had like paused the video to like take a drink and I totally knocked over a bottle and then the thingamajig fell over and then it knocked off like a whole tray of these like little ampules of like gemstones that I was fixing to put into the electroforming bath. And so there's like broken glass everywhere and it's an absolute nightmare, but I'm just gonna sit here and keep on crafting with y'all. So that's a thing. And just smushing it down, literally going one little wrap at a time. And this is the side that we finish on. You can always get in there. I love my bent nose pliers for this, for making sure that you're not crossing over anything weird. There we go. So now we will go like, there's one. Every single coil I stop to make sure it's in its right place before we add in the next one. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. There's 5. And I like to press my fingernail against it and then shift around like with quite a bit of tension on our weaving wire. But you'll get a feel for that. The more you work with it, you'll be able to see it. And sometimes the wire just snaps. So it's very frustrating, but it happens. So I'm going to snip with enough of a tail on there that we can come in with our bent nose pliers and smush, smush, smush around. There we go. And again, we want to just make sure our little thing fits. Boop. Boop, boom. And now we get to do the other side. I am going to come in here and see if we can't do the smush, smush. Yeah. That smushed up nice. Still give it the old smush and squish. So we're going to need to do the coiling on this side, and I'm going to get some fresh 26 gauge. So I'm going to pull up about 6 inches. 6 to 8 inches, just so I have enough to hold on to. I'd be a whole lot more stingy with the wire that I'm scrapping if I were using like sterling or something, but this is why I like using enameled copper, is it's so affordable that you don't really have to sweat it, and you can really practice and fine-tune a design before taking the plunge into, you know, sterling or fine silver. And so now, giving myself about 1 inch or 2 of tail to hold on to, just here off to the side. I'm going to go, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, and ooh, it's a little tricky sometimes, but we'll get there. 10. And so now I'm smushing it with my fingernails. And we may actually, since it's not bound to anything, we can take this and kind of turn the wire and both wires will move. So I'm going to turn it all the way around so that I can snip it and smush it quite comfortably with my pliers. Don't have to hold my hand funny or anything. And then we can take that and bring it around. Sound effects help, I find. That way we can hide that on the back side. So pushing this around, now we get to join these together, and we did that with 5 wraps. Yeah, we did 5 wraps on this side. So now I'm going to take this and just whip stitch through, bringing that wire through, pulling tight and trying to make sure that I'm not overlapping with any of my other coils. So there's one, full wrap, and then 2 full wraps. Again, trying to make sure that they're not getting crisscrossed over each other. If they do, that's okay. Just don't smush it so hard. Like if you're trying to do it for like an aesthetic, the only thing you'll need to watch out for is that you're not like hammering it or smushing it, because where wires cross over each other, if you smush there, it is a soft wire, so they can pinch through each other. So I personally prefer not crossing them over, but I am here to guide you, not to tell you what to do. And if you think something would be cool, do it, because experimentation makes life spicy. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oop, that'd be the 5th one. So now I'm going to come through and just continue whip stitching, but just around 1 core wire this time. And I'm going to pull that down, like that. There's 1. And I'm actually going to use my fingernail as a slide and a block to just slide that wire down so it'll land next to where I want it to without crossing over. So that's 1 full rotation. Also, the wire is getting short, so I'm going to use my pliers to grip. There's 2, smush. Grabbing it and pulling. There's 3, smush. Yeah, I like the round wire way better. Like, as the person making it, I almost don't care how it looks. It's the round is nicer to work with. Just because it's less to have to worry about. Now, as a customer, I actually think I liked the half round. Again, if I had done it well, I like the idea of how the half round would look. But this round, this 26 gauge round, is getting me where I'm going. So, so that is 5 rotations. We'll give it a smush. I'm going to flip it over, and always explore every angle before deciding on how you're going to insert your snips to give it a smush, because you may find one angle that's just a lot easier, and it always warrants exploration. Just because you've been holding a piece a certain way doesn't mean that's... Oh yeah, I caught it with my legs. Huzzah! Super durable. I didn't even hit the floor, so I don't guess that counts. But so now that everything's wrapped together, if we were using a large stone, we can now come in and pressing push all of this up and around, and that way it would sit like that. And oh my gosh, I love the way that that spins. Ooh. And so from here, what we could do is make another piece just like the first, and if you can visualize with me, join them together like this to encapsulate our orb. and we would just like join wherever we wanted. But we're going to do the small one today. So let's bring that up in there, and we can take this and we can actually shape it around just a little bit more. We could make it flatter. That way, if we want this to be housed a little more like floating in the center, we could have it sit like that. And I think I like that. I think I like that a lot, actually. So now we'll be taking our third piece. Oh, this is a bit messy. Let me tidy up real quick. We'll be taking our third piece, and this is going to be our bail, and we have a lot of different options here. So you could do a woven bail that like, we have, here, wait, it's got a wire stuck in it. You could do a little wrapped bail using that half round, which I think would look super cool. You could use, I have no other examples directly on hand. Oh, that's a horrible noise. Oh, you could do an enlarged figure 8 weave around and make like a bail like that. Lots of different options here. Or we could do the simplest of them, which I think is what I'll be doing, where we do 2 loops and then some twists and then make our spirals. So again, this is 12 inches, and I'm going to be using, why is it making that noise? Because there's a wire stuck in it. Okay. I'm going to be using the 8mm section of my stick mandrel. You could use a knitting needle, you could use a pen, just whatever you have that makes you happy. And I am just doing 2 wraps, almost so that it looks like the end of a safety pin. But then I'm going to bend just a little farther so that it's like a safety pin that's crossed. And then I'm going to hold with my fingertips equidistant away from where the wire's crossing. I am going to press and twist. If my fingertips aren't, like if I'm holding it like this, then the wire that my leverage is further out from will be floppier than this one, and they won't twist the same. So that's 1 twist and then 2 twists. I really recommend practicing maybe with some of that scrap wire to do a twist like that, and you could leave it together and wrap it, or I really like to open it up a little bit with my thumbnails, my fingernails, or my pliers, because whenever I string this up onto a necklace, let me see if I can find an example for you. So let's say I want to string this on like a bead strung necklace. So what I would do is I would actually nestle a little bead on the beading material and have it hang like this, and that way, depending on the size of bead that you use and how much you squish those wires back together, your pendant isn't actually wearing on your beading material, like your beading floss or your beading wire. It's just riding there on that bead. And so, and I just like the way it looks when it's like, yo-ho, there's a bead in the middle there. Like, I dig it. So, and it's your jewelry, so you should do what makes you happy. So that's why I like doing that. Also, you could get super fancy and do like a figure 8 weave in there with it already like that, but oh, that'd be tricky. I would not envy you. So to make our spiral, let me measure this just to be certain. From the point of divergence, from right here where it leaves off with the rest of the wrapping, I am measuring 3 inches and giving it a snip. If you're doing a bigger piece, you'll probably want to use longer, but I'm doing just a standard, what is this, 15 to 18 millimeter marble. And yep, 3 inches. I've got a little ruler carved into the edge of my table right here, so that's what I'm measuring with. Okay, we're in the final stretch now, you guys. So from here, if you can see the angle that it's exiting the twist, I want to bend in opposition to that. So if it's exiting that way, I want it to bend towards me. So this one will end up bending in the opposite direction, but this is going to offset our spirals nicely, hopefully. And from here, I'm going to start just at the tip of my pliers and at the tip of the wire, and using my finger to provide some resistance from the back. So once I have that first loop and it's closed, so just like that right there, I'm now going to hold it much farther back. I do recommend practicing this on scrap. I am going to start twisting. I'm just holding the bail and twisting my hand, and that's how I start to get my organic spirals. And then as soon as my hand reaches as far around as is comfortable, I remove my pliers, reinsert them, and then I start tightening up that nice little organic spiral, just cinching it in a little bit. And then from here, we can use our fingers to tighten that spiral further until it starts touching the wire up top, like that. And again, that's probably, for some of y'all, that may be the trickiest part if you're still getting the hang of spirals, but I promise you, the more you practice, and I have an entire bin of scrap wire over here that I like to warm up on and experiment so that I can try to make sure that my spirals come out good, and they still come out like hit or miss. So don't be hard on yourself. If spirals were easy, we'd all be doing it and they'd all be perfect, and you know. Now, they do have like spiral making tools out there. I personally have not used them, but that might be something that's a nice kind of like training wheels to get you started with where you're going. Okay, so now again, just twisting in. There we go. Trying to get the wire spirals to match, but I mean, it's the front and back as opposed to side by side, so it's not like a perfect match. It's not the end of the world. Unless it is. Oh god. And now from here, we can take this and open it up just a bit to be accommodating for the size of our bauble or our marble that we're setting. And because from here, this is where we're going to be kind of sewing the top to the bottom to cage our marble. So with that being the case, I'm actually going to open this up a little bit more. Now, this isn't essential, but I really like it. These are Bracelet Pliers. They are nylon jawed, and I love them for taking pieces like this and making them just a wee bitty bit curved. So just coming through, and you could also use one of the sections of your dapping block, but I like giving y'all options. Or you could just use your fingers. But I really like that because it gets me much more consistent results than if I were to just be using my hands. So from here, I have decided, whoops, it's jumping out at me, that I'd like to pull these sides in a little bit more. So I'm actually going to place this in our bottom tips, and then I'm just going to pull up on the sides. Which, if we had gone through and woven and stabilized everything, we wouldn't have really had that option as much. But since we're here and we didn't, we can. And I like those options. But now our marble still sits nice and happy. The pendant isn't as wide, and this sits in just a little nicer, I think. So, bloop, dropping the marble out, gathering up our scrap off to the side. We're going to be using our 26 gauge again. So I'm pulling off, let's do 24 inches. Because that may be enough for both sides. We may decide to do something weird. We'll figure it out. So now we get to decide how do we want to attach this, because we could stabilize all points across the front, or we could do like how we did here, if you have a longer piece and you're just stabilizing it to like what I would call the shoulders a little bit more. So you don't have to have them be touching, you can have it be, and again, I'm just just getting my finger in there even squinches it up more, and we can have it just be touching those parts. Which is neat. That is an option. That's a thing that humans can do. I kind of liked it a little wider though, so we can open that back up. There we go. Okay, so dumping that back out. I don't think I'm going to be joining it to the cross part right there, but I am going to go ahead, find the center of our wire, open this up just a tad bit to make it a little easier, coming about an inch off center, so it's shorter on the left than it is on the right, just to be accommodating of the coiling that I'm going to be doing. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, doing little details like doing the same number of coils on your bind on and bind off repeated through the piece can really, I think, make a difference in making everything look just a little bit more cohesive. Or you can just scrap it and do 5 more, because I think that would suit it better. So there's 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And I really like working in intervals of like 3 or 5. It's a nice round number. Like, they're not, but I don't know, I like them. Oh, so close. I'm gonna give it 5 more stitches. That way it will be touching nicely on both sides. So again, just scooching this around. 1, 2. Let's zoom in, if that might be helpful. I figure it's helpful as long as I stay in frame. Oh, I lost count. I think that was just 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go. So now, as we shift that around so that it's centered up with the bail, and then we line it up with, or try to. Yeah, I think that will be good. Though we can always decide later that it's not. I'm going to zoom back out just a bit more. And we're going to start some stitching. So I'm just going to come here through this big open area on the side. And coming up between this loop and the spiral. We could figure 8 this, but I'm just going to do a wrap where we wrap around both. So there's 1, and there's coming through for 2. It can be tricky sometimes to dodge everything, but just be patient, you'll get there. 2, there's 3. But I've snagged the inside spiral. There we go. Just plan on the wire betraying what you want it to do, and that puts you in a good, like, proactive mindset for being like, how's the wire gonna misbehave this time? And then it's just a wonderful delight whenever it does what you wanted it to. But it's nice to not count on it because, well, so is that 5? I don't know. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6. That'll be fine. So I'm just pulling it a little tight now, and I'm going to do at least 5 wraps around the one wire to bind off. there's one. Sometimes it takes me a minute to find the easiest way to do it, and sometimes none of it's easy and you just do it anyways. 2, 3, yep. 4 and 5. And I do these tutorials in real time so that y'all can see how I mess up, how I figure out how to recover from the mess up. So I really hope that this is helpful to you. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment, or even you can send us an email at backtoearthcreations@yahoo.com, and I will try my best to be helpful to you. Or if I can't be helpful to you, I'll hopefully point you in the right direction to find what you're looking for. Okay, so now, it landed exactly where I wanted it to. Yeah, that typically doesn't happen. So there's one, wrap around both. And 2, wrap around both. And 3, maybe, yep, wrap around both. And then 4, and 5, but since I'd like to be symmetrical, I'm going to do a 6th wrap around. Was that how we did it? Okay, I'm going to count real quick. Yes, so there were 6 wraps around both before coming into wrapping 5 around 1. So again, however it ends up on the first side, even if it's not what you meant, if you just do it again, then it looks like it was on purpose. Or at least that's what I tell myself. So there's 1. Oh yeah, this is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5. Whenever you can just whip it around like that, oh, so much easier than doing the meticulous, like, one little half rotation at a time hand stitching. Then I'm going to get in there and snip it and smush it. Very cool. So now, most important part is actually remembering to put your marble in, or your stone, or your tumbled stone, or just whatever you're doing. Like, that is important. And I personally don't think I would leave that just a flopping, but if you had like a clasp or something and you wanted to be able to take something back out, I think those would be some really cool options to explore. But we are going to be caging this for forever unless there's some intervention. Oh, you know what'd look really cool is if we made this spiral like look more like a leaf, where we could make it like squared up. Like, you could do so many different things here, you guys. Like, this is just one of an infinite ways of utilizing this caged concept. And I can't wait to see what you guys do with it. Now, both of these, while decent enough scrap wire, I do not think they are long enough. So I'm going to pull another about 20 inches off of my spool of 26 gauge wire, and I'm gonna find roughly about the middle and then offset it by about 1 inch, so that whenever I come through, I'm gonna open this up just a little bit, so that whenever I come through and do those, 20 coils, we should have more or less the same amount on both sides. 2, 3, 4, and just because we want it down there, we can still coil it up here. I don't know why I'm making it more difficult than it has to be, Vaughn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yep, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, yeah, 17, checking to make sure I'm still in the frame, 18, 19, 20, there we go. Yeah, just having it shifted off to the side like that, and then scooch, 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 scooching it around. Oh yeah, much nicer. So now we get to do, how many was it, 6? Well, this is the other side. We could reset it and try to do it at 5, but 6 is okay too. So there's, holding it now with just enough pressure to get a really nice join. Not, ooh, through the wrong loop though. There's no sense in rushing. I get excited and I'm like, yeah, and try to, and then that's whenever I start making some flub ups. So there's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Riveting entertainment, isn't this? In today's episode of Listen to Vaughn count up to 20 at the most. It's like the biggest number. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm like this. Okay, how many was that? Let's count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, let's do one more, bringing it around town. Thank you, public education, for I can count to 20. So now there's 1. And we could lead with the tip of the wire like it's a needle, or we could come around like this. So there's 2, 3, and I'm just holding it off to the side with my thumb, folding it around the spiral, and then pulling through. Lost count again. That's 4, and then 5. And I'm going to bring this around, I'm going to snip it, and it's going to make it look like 6 coils, but these are thin enough wire that if anybody's like, ahem, it looks as though you did 1 more coil on this, and then I'll be like, I don't know how I'll be actually, I'll probably just lose my damn mind, but it's small enough that it should be inconsequential. But again, on your jewelry, you do you. Okay, so now we're gonna go whoop, on the other side, and we're gonna go 1. Now I want to make sure that the core wires stay like side by side, and I don't pull so tight that they start stacking on each other. There's 2. This would look wicked cool with some twisted up square wire too, y'all, I'm just saying. But that's significantly more complicated to wrap around, whether you're using half round or round wire. So like it just doesn't slide as easily, because like right now, since we're using round core wire and round weaving wire, it just glides so smooth over itself. But as soon as we hammer this or use square wire, it does not go so smoothly. Okay, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like some weather's blowing up. And 6. I'm so glad we decided to go with the round wire, you guys. I'm absolutely loving how this is coming out. And now we shall do, yeah, we have to like sew it. There's 1. There's 2. And sometimes, like how you can see here, the wire isn't really getting in where it wants to. So I'm gonna love bent nose pliers for this, you guys. They are, if I had to take 3 pairs of pliers with me to a craft show and that was it, I would take my bent nose, my round nose, and my flush cutters. Everything else is a luxury, but I love my bent nose pliers with their little thermoplastic customized handles too. I like that for long hours of crafting. That was mostly, honestly, for chainmail weaving, because there's a whole lot of just holding on to the pliers, usually clutched out of rage, but it's, you know, chainmail. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, the ways that you can fill in these top and bottom shoulder holes with beautiful like Swarovski bicones, or like maybe even like freshwater pearls or something, endless possibilities, and I cannot wait to see what you guys do. I think I've already said that, but truly, y'all inspire me so much to constantly be trying and learning new things, and it's just keep being awesome, y'all. And there we have our little cage wrapped marble. And that's in one style and in another style. Now we could, if we wanted to go even further, wrap this part here shut, so that way, like that part, you'd have to really get in there and like warp it open with your thumb. But if you are at a craft show or something, or just want to get a bunch of these made, pinching and opening up here, I don't know if you could, like, you'd really have to force the marble through, but it gives you an option to be able to tuck, like let the clients pick what they want and then tuck it in there, and then just push that back and then do that wrapping if you want. So again, whenever you're making your own piece, if something about this is not stable enough or swirly enough or minimalist enough, you can, I mean, by all means, make those modifications to make it your own and make it perfect for you. But thank you guys so much for joining me here today. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. I love hearing from you guys. And you can see this one here, that's like a rough nugget, like a tumbled nugget of lepidolite, and it's just so pretty, like just tumbling about in its little cage. So if you would like to support our channel beyond just being here and watching and being awesome, please check out our Craft Along Club. It starts at just $1 a month or $12 a year, and it gives you access to our Craft Along Club exclusive after parties and behind the scenes content and members only page, and all sorts of stuff over on our website. We also do our booty boxes for $10 and up, so that you can be using the same materials that we use in all of our work, and the more you pledge, the more you get, so you could get like the same para-wire and all sorts of stuff. So again, all the information for that is down in the video description, or you can email us. And until next time, you guys, happy crafting. Mwah! Bye.